This summer, President Obama declared the area where the Stonewall Uprisings took place in New York City, including the Stonewall Inn, as a national monument. At the time of the president's announcement, Lady Bunny was performing her critically acclaimed one drag queen show, Transjester, at the Stonewall Inn. And while Bunny may not be a national monument, she's certainly a national treasure.
Today, Lady Bunny joins us in the home studio to give us a look at her early days as a drag queen in Atlanta with Rupaul, and how she was forced by her band, now Explosion, to dress up in drag on their car ride move to New York City.
Plus, Lady Bunny at the age of 11 living with her missionary family in Africa.
Getting paid $60 to go-go dance at the Pyramid Club in the 80s.
And a woman finds a dead body while playing Pokemon Go. I am Fausto Fernos.
I'm Mark Fillion.
And this is Feast of Fun.
Not Shaven gives me more time for misbehaving. Get this sexy t-shirt and all our fabulous designs at feastoffun.com/store.
Guess who's in my home studio? It's Lady Bunny!
Hi.
How are you, Bun Bun?
Great.
What kind of nicknames do your friends call you?
Bun Bun, Bunyan, Bunster.
Yeah.
You're assuming that I have...
Fuckface.
Those are more nicknames than I have friends. So let's not get too carried away.
What are you doing in my house, girl? As I woke up and you were here.
I slept. Don't you remember the beautiful evening we shared of romance and laughter?
So you're here in town performing at Trinica's Most Wanted? What's the name of the show tonight?
Least Wanted tonight.
What washed into the shore?
What washed into the shore? Here, Lady Bunny's in the
drag
home
matinee.
studio. Drag matinee.
For the very first time.
For the very first time. And we always enjoy having you on the show. And, of course, a lot of depressing and horrible things have been happening in the last couple of months.
And then I show up at your doorstep. Did I mention my flight tomorrow has been canceled?
What?
Yeah. And I got an eviction
weekend.
notice right before I left, so I noticed you have an extra room here.
We went out last night. We expected to come back home and find you like passed out on the floor with like the peanut butter jar like open and Jesse like whimpering in the corner. Like, why did you leave me here?
Well, Jesse really enjoys Lady Bunny.
Oh, yeah.
Well, instead, you found Jesse's ass smeared with peanut butter with me licking it. You see, I like to switch things up and always remain unpredictable.
So, Lady Bunny, what do you have to say about all this? I mean, that hasn't been said about all this police shootings and most recently Diamond Lavish's live streaming of her boyfriend's death at the hands of police officers.
Well, I have not actually had a news on for 1 week, but I've seen things online. And I don't know everything about this, but it's part of a pattern that doesn't end. I am glad to see people voicing my same sentiment that this isn't a few bad apples. These are bad apples in the police force, other sort of bad apples who get tainted by them when they do not turn in officers doing questionable things like this. There does seem to be a code of silence, and in some cases, I think that this is even encouraged. And it's a very deep problem. I don't think it's a few bad apples. I think it goes way up. I think we need to determine how far it goes, because there are not only officers who look the other way, there are police chiefs who may encourage this behavior. There are cities like Ferguson, where didn't they say that it was like some ridiculous percent of the city's earnings were from fining people, like 80% or something of the cities. Wasn't it like it was 60 or 80? Anyway,
At least they're keeping the money. Here in Chicago, we have traffic tickets and it goes to a foreign corporation.
Right, but what it's actually doing in Ferguson is creating a criminal class. I mean, one girl was arrested for sitting in a car in her backyard that was parked, and then she is taken to jail, and her mom has to pay to get her out. So yes, you're creating someone with records who really, you have a police far from protecting you, killing you, but even when they're not killing you, harassing you and giving you that pipeline to prison. So it's
extorting money from you.
Yeah, and whether it's the commissioner, the police commissioner who lets this happen, or whether the mayor is telling him to permit it to happen, who is benefiting from this? I think it's the prison industry. And
well, it's interesting because right now in November, California is going to be voting to legalize marijuana along with Massachusetts, Maine, and Nevada for recreational marijuana.
Great.
Which dramatically is going to cause the number of people who are being sent to prison to drop. Already it's been shown in the state of Washington and Colorado.
Because if you look at statistics here in Chicago, 85% of people who are arrested for marijuana possession are African American. Cops use it as an excuse to pick up a black person.
And at a certain point, and this is another interesting thing about that hasn't been said about the Diamond Lavish video, is that we're starting to have the technology and the ability now to live stream our deaths. Which is really like we're sort of moving where, the movie Tron, do you remember the premise of it was that it was like a war that was being waged in the digital space, in the space of the computers. For, independence and freedom and all this stuff. And it's interesting now in 2016 that we have not only the ability to sort of document and broadcast our deaths on social media, but also we have right now this game called Pokemon Go is the hot new game right now, which is an app that forces people to leave the house and wander their neighborhoods
and find dead bodies.
What's going on?
Well, there was a girl. She was like 14 years old. She's using this Pokemon Go, and you're supposed to go and walk around, and you find a Pokemon, and then you get it. I don't think you kill it.
It's like a virtual reality game.
Virtual reality
using
so
your smartphone.
She was going, and then she went by this river, and then she sees something floating, and she's like, I think that's a person. So she called 911, and sure enough, it was a person.
And so
does that mean she wins the game?
She won the internet, honey.
She won the internet. So we were driving to go see a drag show last night, and it stopped in an intersection. And on my right hand side, there was about 7 gay men outside a gay bar, and instead of talking to each other, they were all had their faces buried on their phone. And I didn't realize they were probably all playing Pokemon Go.
Or Grinder
or whatever, but I was like, it was a very interesting that you're like in our lives right now, visiting and staying with us. And I thought, man, this is like,
because I hate every app, and I hate I hate video games and hate Snapchat, Instagram, all of it. I mean, you kind of went from Black Lives Matter, which is a really serious thing that's been going on since slavery, to Pokemon new game. So I mean, it's I mean, you're talking about. I mean, there is a relation because they one found a dead body and what, but it's and these cameras are enabling us to prove what black people have been saying all along. We're being killed. We're being treated unfairly. So, I mean,
but with these digital devices, you were also saying that they're sort of like disconnecting us in some regard.
Well, they're completely disconnecting us. And I believe we're not getting together. We're not in each other's faces. And whether it's, Adam Lanza from Sandy Hook or Omar Mateen from Orlando that shot up Pulse, it's just we're not in each other's faces on a regular basis. There was always a club where most people our age went a couple nights a week. You checked in with all your friends. You would see them on a weekly basis. Well, I don't think people are seeing each other anymore. I mean, I'm single. I think people are isolating behind these screens and spending all their time on the screens. So if someone is going down a rabbit hole of ISIS or, looking at other mass shootings or, then I think if we were in their faces once in a while to say, hey, babe, you're really nutting up. Then you see them the next night and they're like sweating and they've got a brown paper package. It looks like an assault weapon. You say, let's go talk to your mother, or is your pills or finish your pills, your mood pills, or I mean, we need to be in each other's faces, checking to see before these things happen. So
are you saying that basically a lot
cell
of gun
phones are
violence?
Alienating everyone? We are not in touch on social media. We've liked to post. You've not seen that person's face. You don't know if they're melting down. It is isolating. It's making people feel awful.
So what do you do?
It's people putting their lobster dinner on Facebook to front and make everybody think that they're doing great when no one is doing great.
But ironically, it's all this digital media of capturing police brutality that's getting people to go out into the streets and protest.
Well, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. I mean, the Arab Spring revolution, happened because those governments shut down their news, and hashtags and all that stuff. I can't stand.
How successful was the Arab Spring, though? It seems like it just caused us to get into more wars and more factions and more problems.
Well, I think it had more to do with them rising up against their governments, which I think we might need to do here.
Well, right now in Dallas, I guess 4 police officers, 5 were shot by a sniper. As of right now, it's unidentified, but it's like, Mark,
they know who the guy is. Oh yeah, they blew him up.
Oh, they found him. Okay.
Yeah, they found him. They sent in a robot with a bomb and blew him up. So they didn't.
Do we not have trials in this country anymore?
Well, they didn't know how.
I guess not. Oh well, okay.
What happened with the robot? They sent a robot.
Yeah, they sent in a robot with a bomb and to his location because they couldn't apprehend him because I think they were having some kind of conversation with him and they couldn't get him to surrender or come out. So they're just like, we need to take him out because he's shooting police officers, and so they blew him up.
And maybe the reason that he was shooting police officers is because they just killed a black person like him without a trial.
So is this like
as they've been doing for many years that we've seen since cell phones have come about?
It's like a Roomba with a bomb on top.
Yeah. I guess it's usually used for detonating bombs or something, or maybe it's a camera one, and then they just sent it in. They blew him up. So he was somebody who had served in the military, and he was very upset with the treatment of African Americans in this country and them being killed by the police. And so he, I guess, mainly targeted white police officers in Dallas. And part of it too is, I guess, a lot of people are saying is Dallas had some charges against them in the recent past about racial profiling. But since like 2009, they've added, they had taken steps to actually make their police force better. That's what they're saying. I don't know.
But their police force, according to a friend of mine that worked with the Dallas police force, is actually one of the most ethnically diverse. It is Latino and it is black primarily. And if the sniper had to be a really good shot, because there weren't that many white police officers, because there are not that many on the force. 2/3 are black and Latino in Dallas, including the police chief.
Right.
Have you noticed that now everybody's like saying like humans need to stop killing humans and you're a beautiful human and all this stuff, and I'm like, you guys sound like characters in Star Trek, like Ferengis, that.
Human.
But it's sort of strange, like, to hear this like emphasis on our humanity.
Well, because now the cops are getting killed, so now we have to now let's stop murder.
Well, yeah, I guess it's a way to say we're human, even though we come in different colors or sexual persuasions or.
So I posted that photo that I took of the gay men, and at the last frame of the photo, one of them's raising his head up and be like, he knew I was up to no good.
He saw you taking the photo.
He gave me the stink eye. I'll post that on the website, and he's giving the stink eye, and they're all like, you're going to be using this to post this on social media to say that gay men don't interact with each other, to reinforce your idea that young people are all screwed up.
Well, it's not just young people. I mean, I was in a club last summer and they were having Grindr party. And I'm like, babe, Grindr is what killed your whole industry.
Well, now they're using
now you say, come on, party with us. And the last few drags, it's like, wow, okay. The ones that are too old or drunk to even see what the pictures on Grindr look like. And like, that's your audience now.
Well, that's how they use it to market their events. So you get a message on your app, whether it's on Scruff or Grindr. It's like, hey, come party here tonight. We're having this kind of party. So they use it as a, because the newspapers are dead, so that nobody advertises in those anymore. So
all the LGBT ad dollars are moving into the hookup app space.
Yeah.
So if you're looking to advertise to a gay male audience, besides this podcast, which is a wonderful opportunity, it's really like it's either YouTube videos, Facebook ads, podcasts, or hookup apps. And the majority of the dollars and the money is on the hookup apps because they can target regional and location.
You seem very familiar with their content, like overly familiar.
And
there is cum dripping out of your ears right now.
Part of it is it's interesting because you're sort of forced to sexually interact with people that you normally wouldn't sexually interact with, right? It's everybody in your whole neighborhood geographically, and in before these apps existed, you'd go to a bar if you thought somebody was cute, back alley. If you liked somebody, you'd go approach them. But now you're in a situation where like all these people that you're interacting with are not necessarily people you would ever interact with in real life. You don't hang out in the same bars. You may not be of the same economic class or even the same language.
But you want to fuck them.
Yeah. Well, didn't you have some fun in Puerto Rico recently?
I tried.
You were flown down to Puerto Rico for a gig, and
I did. I stayed there, and I went out to try to. It was Saturday night, beautiful weather, and I went out with a Trixie Mattel pink T-shirt, and I had a brace on my ankle because I twisted it on this cruise, the Alan Chuck drag cruise, and which was really fun until that night that Latrice wore stiletto heels and punched a hole in the hull of the ship. No, anyway, it was a funny moment because I was rehearsing a song that's like a country tongue twister song. I've been to Reno, Chicago, Fargo, Minnesota, Buffalo, just on and on and on. And so, but with headphones on, and then something made me laugh, and I was drinking a juice with cayenne pepper and snorted green juice all out of it. And I was like, wow. So you're muttering as if you're looking at a Quran. You're laughing to yourself, and you're squirting lots of green snot with a pink T-shirt. You are really a catch, honey. Look out, Puerto Rico. Hey, boys, don't all jump at once. Well, Senior Rita Bunny is here.
We had a lot of fun. In 2012, we got an Airbnb apartment in Condado, which is the gay neighborhood in San Juan, and
that made us feel very welcome. It was good to come home, wasn't it, Fausto?
Well, this is
let those scabs on your ass heel. They were there when you left.
I hooked up with this guy who lived in a condominium, a new condominium building that was built like right next door to the house that I grew up in. And I was like, and he was like giving me a ride home, and I was like, "Do you mind if we drive past the house I grew up in?" And he was like, "Oh, brother." And I'm like, I said, I was like driving past it, and I was like, "This is where I used to play as a little kid. I used to have a lemonade stand there in the '70s." And he was like, "Okay." Get out of the car now. But it's like Puerto Rico's.
Are you saying that Grindr hookups are totally soulless and empty, and that they wouldn't care about your humanity or your history?
No, actually, it was a very deep, meaningful connection
to you.
For me.
He said, "Get out of the car."
Well, he didn't really say that. He was very polite, very, very nice guy.
The real twisted ones are when you get them back home, and then they say, "Ooh, set up a lemonade stand. That sounds kind of hot." Yeah, let me see what you wore when you were a little kid. Did you wear like little diapers?
No, we wore really awesome clothing in the 1970s. It's like when in the 80s, I was always like pointing to pictures of myself as a kid, and asking my mom, like, "Can you buy us these clothes?" And like, "Honey, they don't sell those clothes in your size anymore."
And you said, "But mommy, good mommies know how to sew."
My mother actually had a sewing machine, but she didn't, So she sewed like, aprons and oven mitts and stuff like that. And curtains. Did you ever grow up sewing?
Never.
So like if you were like how old were you when you first started dressing up in drag? Like in your 18, 19?
I mean, I lived in drag my hair was long. I would wear long T-shirts and T-shirts longer than the shorts. So it looked like a dress. It looked like a girl in a dress. That's what I lived until 13, 14, 15.
What was it? You were like in the Victorian era or something?
It was a woman. It was a full-fledged woman. There are pictures.
Why were you
so when you were like living in Africa, you were basically like living as a woman?
Oh, well, when I was living in Africa, my parents are cheap, and we were there for 1 year, Ghana, and they have this beautiful embroidery on dashikis because everyone has their clothes homemade. Jorami, I think it's called. So they're cheap, so they wanted me to grow into them, so they bought really big sizes of dashikis so that I could, still growing. So I still am growing, not up, just out. And so when I got back to Chattanooga with all these big, oversized, we'd gone into a different school, not the junior high school, which fed in. So all the kids didn't know me. They didn't know that we'd been to Africa. So, but the teacher said, my name is spelled John, Jon, and she thought she looked at me and said, what is that in this like colorful dashiki? and saw the hair and thought, that's a woman, that's a girl. And so she called me, Jan, and she realized like 3 or 4 days into the class that I was not a boy, that I was a boy and not a girl, because for days she'd been calling me boy, and I was like I was like, I passed, girl. I passed without even trying. Well, I mean, I was wearing like a big, printed blouse with embroidery all over the neck, and I kept my hair long. But, my dad did something that I love him for, which is they had cut this kid's hair. Because, like, when I was in elementary school, this is even before Africa, kids had that long, like, peasant hair, like Justin Bieber wore when it's kind of like an oaf, like the oaf haircut when Justin Bieber was first, that heavy, thick bang. And that's what they wore in the 70s. And, we were coming off the Beatles, and, they had bangs and their hair was shoulder length. So a teacher told the kid to closed his eyes and took his hair and cut it with the scissors. And I saw that and flipped out, because I was my hair. Even long before Bunny was born, there were giant wigs. I mean, I was my hair. And my father walked over to I came home and told him, he walked over to school and said, you touch a hair on my son's head, this will go to the Supreme Court. And they knew that he would, because he had been, an anti-draft counselor and all that kind of shit. So
your family lived in Ghana from what ages was it?
I was 11 years old, 1 year.
Wow.
1970s.
And then
you had some groundnut stew?
Oh, I did. We had groundnut stew often.
Well, we got into trouble because Bob the Drag Queen was coming on the Cooking with Drag Queens, and we tried to make a food that has a emotional or significance to the guest.
He liked peanuts. He's like, I love peanut sauce. And we're like, well, have you ever had a peanut curry? He's like, no. I'm like, well, let's make a peanut curry, because if you love peanut sauce, you're going to love that, because it's basically just peanut soup.
Well, because I'm a big fan of Thai curry, Thai red curry, and then I was reading in a food blog that curry dishes are very popular in Africa and in Ghana, actually, where you were living. And so I started researching, and I found out this amazing recipe that had peanuts in it and potatoes.
Peanuts, potatoes, and chicken.
And chicken, yeah. And so we made this with tofu, because Bob's vegetarian, and the people on YouTube, like some individuals, are like, how can you two, as one said, was white and white passing. That's me.
Oh, God.
Show a black man how to make African
And they're like,
food.
that is such entitlement, I can't believe it. And we're just kind of like, whatever.
What did the African man know how to make his stew from Africa?
He does now.
Well, did he before?
No.
Well, then I don't think anybody can fault you for showing him.
Well, and nobody seemed to mind the fact that we made naan bread, which is an Indian style bread. But
what?
Yeah.
How dare you?
Cultural appropriation in the kitchen.
So are you a fan of groundnut stew? Or
I love
nut stew in
groundnut
general?
stew. Well, when we lived in Africa, my parents were becoming vegetarian, partially because my mom was a nurse, and the way that the meat market was literally like a dark room, not a cold room, not a refrigerated room, but basically a goat skull sliced open with the brains exposed for you to buy, with flies buzzing all over it. So my mother, knowing everything you could get from that as a nurse, she kind of just stopped making meat. And it was a real big deal for me because, we lived on the top of a hill, and we got off we got off right before lunch. So I would climb up that hill in that African heat and get there and be like, beans again? Because my mother didn't know how to cook vegetables. I mean, you couldn't get seitan or whatever.
Yeah. Or tofu in Africa.
No. And
in the
so,
70s.
She would just stop. She just omitted the meat, and there was no protein, and I'm hypoglycemic. So by the time I got up that hill, you didn't want to serve me anything that I did not love. So I was in fits over that on a daily basis.
So what did you wind up eating then? Just what your mother
Her
was cooking?
pussy. I said, that's it, Mom.
But you did have a boyfriend
If you insist on making these beans, then I'm going to eat your pussy while you fart.
If I can't eat meat, I'll have fish.
What was it your joke that you said about the sucking somebody off and they were farting? Do you remember that joke?
Yes. I was blowing a guy the other night and he farted. I said, you're disgusting. He said, so are you, Bunny. I'm trying to take a shit.
That never gets old. So you fell in love when you were at a young age in Africa.
I did. I had a boyfriend because you hold hands with your friends, and I had a Pakistani beauty, Prince. And sorry, I lost contact with him. My sister kind of stole him from me in a really hideous sibling sabotage. Yeah, she slept with him.
How old is your sister?
She's 3 years older than me.
So she was an older woman.
She was what they call fast in Chattanooga. So she was 14, and she took my man because I didn't have a vagina.
What's your sister's first name?
Jan, the Lady Jan.
The Lady Jan. So in your family, it's your dad, your mom, you, and your sister. So it's the four of you guys, or all living in Africa for 1 year. Then you go back to Chattanooga, Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And what was that experience like returning back to the South?
Well, I mean, listen, there's tourist attractions that are quite famous in Chattanooga, like Rock City and stuff. And we always joke, our parents never took us to Rock City. They could took us to Africa. But, I mean, they, my dad also, they became Quaker, vegetarian and Quaker in Africa because their mentors were a very fascinating older English couple. Uh-huh. And they kind of mentored my parents, and my parents became Quaker. But they also like Quaker religion because they're cheap, which is why they made the shirts in bigger and bigger sizes. I mean, I'm glad they did. But anyway, so we went to Sweden after Africa, where he bought a Volvo. We drove through Europe, and then flew home and shipped the car home. So, I'm glad that my parents always took us around the world because, you get a different viewpoint.
Well, besides Africa, where else did you go?
We went to Mexico, Canada. We were at Expo 67
in Montreal.
Yes, we went to a peace march in the 70s in DC. We went to Scotland for like some family getaway.
And so at what age did you move from Chattanooga to Atlanta?
About 20.
And you were there just kind of like living on your own. Were you going to school there, I guess?
I went to Georgia State, but I wasn't focused, and there was no class on drag, so I kind of fell in with Rupaul and Lahoma and the Now Explosion in the club scene.
And so with your posse, or as RuPaul likes to say, your tribe, you found your tribe there.
I did.
And y'all moved to New York City at the same time?
Mm-hmm, yes, and I stayed. And they all went back home, and when they came back, well, it was an odd trip. They had me ride up in drag because the band Now Explosion would normally get someone to help drive, and I don't drive. So they said, you have to get in drag and entertain us. So it was like mad moments of me like at a bus stop trying to like shave in drag in the toilet. I mean, it was really just,
so they were force feminizing you for this road trip.
Well, they were not just force, but then they always wanted to go thrift shopping. So we stopped in DC in about the halfway point, and I got lost. This was before cell phones, honey. There I am in drag in DC, pretty much penniless, no cell phones, and the wig is blowing off my head because I didn't even know how to get them on right, and I mean, it was terrifying. I mean, I finally found the van, but I have no sense of direction. And they were also trying to bait me because they were jealous that Rue had gotten a show at the Pyramid and that I was included in that show. So they were trying to pit me against RuPaul in such a disturbing way because I was already like, going going to the big city. I mean, I was 21, 22, and they were making a tape recording on a cassette where they would say, so Bunny, I hear you are competing with Rupaul, and I wouldn't say anything, and one of them would speak as me and say, that's right, girl. And I mean, Ru and I were really close friends, but it was funny because it's like,
that's evil.
I mean, well, it was really evil, and they were actually jealous of Ru, but and so they're trying to pit us against because we were such good friends. Yeah. But the funny thing is that, I would take some tips from Ru. She might have taken a few from me too, but Ru would just make posters and put them up
of herself.
Yeah, and so like with just like a nonsense Diana Ross everything is everything message, or RuPaul is everything. That's what it was.
RuPaul is everything.
I would put one up that was like my idea of like Xerox art, which was poof, it's Bunny, and it was my face on the cover of one of those paintings of Venus coming out of the sea. Mm-hmm. It was just so insane. I mean, so badly done. But the stupid thing is that neither RuPaul or I had any shows. We didn't have any shows.
Yeah, like
we were just putting up posters. It's just insane. I mean,
just to build fame.
Just to get your name out there.
We weren't thinking that.
You weren't thinking that far ahead, but it's like I understand. Like RuPaul was broke and went back to Chattanooga, I guess, and it was like Atlanta, yeah, and
or
so
San Diego.
Was it San Diego? He were in turn home, and his friends in New York were like, "Listen, we'll help you and take care of you." And I think one of those guys is the producer of Drag Race now, isn't he?
I don't know if
yeah, it was Fenton or Bailey.
I think she mentioned that in her DragCon speech. That was her.
And for you, was that a similar experience for you? Like, was it hard to make ends meet living in New York City at that time period? Or?
Not at all. It was reasonable. And someone said, "Be my roommate. The rent's $500." I paid $250, paid $50 or $60 to go dance at the Pyramid, every weekend night. And, So
what are you, like, young aspiring drag queens today that are not going to get on RuPaul's Drag Race? What are they supposed to do?
Go to Detroit. The houses are $1 and there's lots of black dick.
Seriously speaking, though, is like,
it's the new Brooklyn.
Should we be moving everybody young person should be moving to like these small towns that are sort of like, cheap to live in?
The old New Yorkers can't afford New York's Manhattan anymore, so I know the young ones can't that are moving there with nothing. I mean, I'm envisioning these kids hold up 6 to a studio, and what must that do to your sex life?
I don't think you have one.
I think you do it in the bathroom.
You just have to travel.
Well, you look up on
I can't host.
Scruffer, Grinder, and stuff like that.
I can never host.
Yeah. And so from there, you sort of like your career sort of led you into dealing with Wigstock, or how did like Wigstock bridge that time, early days in New York City?
Well, Wigstock, I wanted to do a show to showcase everyone that was at the Pyramid because I had come from the Atlanta drag scene, which was very pageanty, transsexuals lip syncing to Melissa Manchester and, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And it was very, very well done. I still am in touch with some of those girls like Hot Chocolate and Dina Jacobs today. And I love them to death. I mean, they were superstars to us because we were penniless and we were cast as extras. This is Floyd, RuPaul, me in the movie Tank. If you're not familiar with it.
The movie Tank?
Yes.
There's a movie called Tank?
Shirley, James Garner and Shirley Partridge.
Shirley Jones?
Yes.
Shirley Jones and James Garner are in this movie, and you guys are in the background of
No. We never even got in the background because we would get the money for lunch and go to the thrift store to get our hot new look, and then we'd come back and sign it and try to get paid, and they'd usually like no, but so we would. I mean, we were pitiful back then, but anyway,
so you got hired as extras, but then you ditched the set
after we get our lunch money.
Oh, so honey, what you needed to do is get cast on like large productions. Like we used to do that in Austin, Texas, all the time.
Yeah.
And usually a lot of those productions were shot in downtown Austin.
But we didn't want the money. We didn't want to work. We just wanted to get the lunch money and go buy some dress to wear out to the club that night.
That's what we did in our day. It's like I got cast on it was a music video and one of those high end like less filling, tastes great, less filling, one of those conceptual beer commercials, And where they
is that a commercial about your penis? Oh no, tastes great. I'm sorry, I got it mixed up.
And so the basically what you would do is you show up in the morning, you get signed in, and you would, when no one's looking, you sneak out and hang out at a bar. And then go check in on the production. At the end of the day, you clock out and they pay you in cash.
Such a great work ethic. But anyway, so we were pitiful in
but
Atlanta.
You guys messed it up. At the end of the day, they wouldn't give you your cash payment.
No,
because they clocked you out. They were like, these girls are up to no good.
Right, but I mean, coming from that pitiful background, but also, I mean, in Atlanta, we were the club kids. I mean, we did not have the polish. We did not have the wardrobe or anything. We had no money. We were barely pay our rent. So when I got to New York, I saw all kinds of different drag at the Pyramid and wanted to really showcase that to a larger audience than the 200 or 300 people that could fit in that club.
And so how did the drag scene sort of move from this sort of like glamorous verisimilitude, as you describe them as transgender women lip syncing to standards, to the sillier, more performance art, more goofy style that Wigstock embodied?
Well, I never set out thinking this way. Well, I guess I did, but back then was a dark time in New York where everyone was literally listening to the Smiths and wearing all black, or the look was, if you're a fashion twink, you would wear the brooch at the shirt, button your shirt all the way up and wear a brooch on a black blouse. I mean, that was like, so everything was very dark and we were very zany. We were, the Atlanta crew, and there was AIDS, killing people, and it was just happening, and no one knew exactly what to do, and our friends were dropping like flies. So I always felt that, there are community leaders and there are jesters, and both are important. And my role was to be that of the jester. I didn't know what AIDS drug should be approved. I didn't, I wasn't a part of ACT UP. I mean, if they wanted me to do a benefit, I would do it. But, I wasn't one of those, So I just felt it was really important for a community that was making demands, to also say, not saying that we're justified, we want these drugs, that we're dying, please approve these drugs. I mean, that's not a reasonable demand. But I think it's great to step back and sometimes say, hey, we're still here. Let's have a party. Let's have fun. And we are alive. And I kind of think... similar thing with, even though I'm a bit more serious now, but I'm looking at social media and all the despair. I mean, first David Bowie died, then Prince died, then Bernie Sanders' career, the campaign fizzled out, then Orlando, then shootings all over the world the last weekend, and now
and Sarah Silverman. Sarah Silverman last week was spent 7 days in the intensive care unit of a hospital with a freak case of epiglottitis.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess,
is there a non-freak case of that? I don't know.
Well, I think you either get it from, they say that you either get it from drinking something hot and burning the back of your throat, or doing drugs, or it might be even an STI, sexual infection.
Okay.
And it's very common with meth addicts.
You did your research, huh?
Well, because I just read the comment section. A lot of people read the headlines. I go straight to the comment section.
But
at any rate, it feels like my computer screen is now a portal into despair.
Right.
And I don't want to turn my back on what's happening in the world, because I do feel I'm part of the world. But also, okay, so you can tell everybody that Bernie Sanders is great. You can, to tell everybody what's going on with these police shootings or anything else. Pop music, you can evaluate Lemonade or whatever until the cows come home. But the fact is, that's the outside world. In your world, are you happy? are things right? You've tried to set the world right. So that's a balance that I find, that this very contentious election has created. I mean, we're online to basically, some people are lighter and just concerned with what they ate. Other people have got like a drive to say, this is why I think this. And, sometimes it's hard to find that balance of how much you let yourself get sucked into social media, as we've said, or as I've said, social media, as opposed to getting together with your friends to maybe determine if they're...
Is that the cure for all this? Because, I mean, if you spend all day on Facebook or on Twitter, you're seeing all this horrible things.
I know.
It's depressing.
And it's depressing. You want to take action. You want to do something, but you also need to self-care. And so it's important to figure out how you can do that.
So go see Lady Bunny and Transjester now at the Rosemont Arena. where are you performing your show?
I'm performing with Tranica Rex tonight at Roscoe's.
Well, by the time people hear this on Monday.
I'm going to be doing Transjester the month of September at 7. It's a new 90-minute one-woman show that ran from April to July, and I'm taking a break to do my summer gigs.
Here in Chicago?
No, in Stonewall, which was landmarked by President Obama.
Yes.
The dump looked like it was more like it was landmined, honey.
What do you mean by landmine?
It's a dump.
It's in disrepair, the Stonewall Inn?
Well, the funny thing is that I make this joke about one of the stools because it's really, really raggedy. And they since it was landmarked, I guess the owner came to the show and he kind of like fixed all the chairs, and they said, but we're leaving that one for you.
What do they do? Turn it upside down?
Because he said he liked the message of the show, so he said that we're leaving that one fucked up for you.
Because I guess in Transjester, it's a lot about the space and the Stonewall Inn, too, that you're talking about?
I mention how this is kind of where gay rights movement in this country got started, and where are we right now? Are we really focused on the big ticket items or our opponents, or are we stabbing each other in the back and feeling like a very hateful community within the community?
Well, it's always easy to criticize each other, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, it's when
it's
you have
comforting
when you have
ways.
Very real enemies. Whether it's Orlando or Kim Davis and the religious freedom stuff, or the North Carolina bathroom bill, which also pertains to GLB as well as T. There's been other bills in Mississippi, Indiana. There's more coming up. There was in Seattle, where they voted for Bernie Sanders. There's a trans bathroom bill coming up, 1919. So, I mean,
hold on a second.
Our enemies are there. Do we want to keep fighting each other, or do we want to fight them? Because if we're going to fight our enemies, we have to agree on who our enemies are.
Well, isn't the Stonewall Inn now a national park, and they have bathrooms in there, and you're performing in there, Transjester?
Well, I'm not suggesting that my show had anything to do with the landmark status, but I will say that, like Stonewall in 1969, it's a riot.
Yes! Lady Bunny, it's always a pleasure. I know. We're just literally taping this because we're waiting for your car to show up. But
we're going jewelry.
You really
cheap
are.
drug jewelry.
I would consider you like a national landmark, of gay culture. What?
Is that a fat joke?
No. Lady Bunny is family to us. Being friends with you, Bunny, and having you on the podcast over the past decade has been a treasure. So much of this show is influenced by you.
Please don't blame me.
I really appreciate what you do, and the fact that you're still out there and performing, and
I never learned how to do any apps, so I'm forced to get on the stage with an actual mic, not Periscope you. And
you're literally performing for your life.
That's right.
Lip syncing for
the
your
audience
life.
Is running for their life.
Well, it's funny because some of your jokes you lip sync to, but when you have a song, you sing it live. Why is it that way?
Well, a lot of people don't understand the laugh-in joke routine where there was a cocktail party and they kind of like, I don't know if they were individually mic'd or whether they was pre-recorded and they were lip-syncing, but it looked to me like they were lip-syncing. I never thought that much about it, but the reason that I do a bit of music and then a joke and then so it becomes a number is because I'm not a stand-up really. And that enables me to dance, and it's good for club people because they have no attention span. So it's like, oh, she's dancing. Oh, she's frozen. And now we have to listen. Oh, she's dancing again. Tap your toe or whatever. So it really came out of that. And I mean, if I could have a sound guy that I travel with, if I was that big of an operation to where I could have, then I could do it live. But how could I, with comedy and timing, there's no way I can trust some guy who does a sound check and then there's a different guy at 2 a.m. when I go on in a gay club that doesn't even have a good, crisp microphone.
Well,
it's just pointless. So I'd rather have it in the mix with the timing just the way I want it.
Well, I think it makes it special that you sing your songs, but you lip sync your words. And it's just kind of like it's the opposite of what most drag queens do. So it makes it special.
No, but the thing, I see the oddness that you're, and some people don't understand the number and have said so because they don't know the original laugh-in.
Sure.
If you do know, but the funny thing is, I used to sometimes lip sync to my words because the clubs, I started doing that at Wigstock because 8-hour show by the end of the day, I was like, get your ass over here. Where's your back up dancers right here? Yeah. I mean, my voice was gone. Yeah. So, I would have to have my vocals on there. And a lot of performers have vocals on their songs that they sing live to just to give them a boost. Because if you're Janet Jackson, you're singing, all the girls in the party, look at that body shaking that. I mean, she does like 50 layers of whispering. So if you're in a giant arena and you're singing live and that's the only voice, all the girls in the party, look at that body. I mean, come on. No one's going to know what you're saying because the bass is like, boom, boom, boom. So it's like, but this show is like, I mean, you're mixing it up a little bit because this show is like 90 minutes of patter and songs and there's one other thing where I think and lip sync to what I'm thinking, but I mean it's just that one little thing that's lip sync. But I mean it does confuse some people.
One thing that we caught before we wrap this up is you performing with Bianca Del Rio at the sort of the Rupaul season 8 tour. They had you sort of I guess they had you DJing.
You were the DJ, yeah.
And Bianca was hosting it, but it turned into sort of a Abbott and Costello drag queen routine.
I would love to see that video.
I actually shot it.
I know.
I'm going to post it up on our YouTube channel this week.
I've been hearing that for months. When was this?
We've been busy.
Yeah. I've been working.
And it still won't be this week, Bunny. I can guarantee you it won't come out this week.
But so is there any talk on like having you guys actually like developing an act together or traveling as a duo?
Well, we get along really well and we've worked together a lot. So, I mean, one thing was mentioned, we also did this National Treasures tour with Jackie Beat and Sherry Vine in London and Manchester. We were going to do it in Amsterdam, but they're thinking of trying to push that, with other dates as well, which I'm happy to do. We did a version of That's Entertainment called Drag Entertainment that Jackie wrote that was just demonic. Just insane.
Well, I'm looking forward to any collaboration you guys have because it's really something magical.
Well, she is, as you saw from that show in Chicago, she is much. She is scream. I mean,
did you really fart on stage next to Bianca Del Rio, or was that like a bit that you guys have?
Well, I'm so loose that I can never actually tell if there's been a fart or a shit or just nothing at all. I can't really differentiate.
I want to remind folks that we can't do this podcast without your support. So if you're not a Plus member yet, consider signing up today.
Right after the shit joke. Yeah.
At feastoffun.com/plus.
Hey, we got t-shirts for sale. Help support this podcast. Go to feastoffun.com/store where you can get it. Not shaving gives me more time for misbehaving. That's a pretty good Lady Bunny impersonation, isn't it?
Not shaving gives me time for... Is that
more time for misbehaving?
More time. Is that not shaving gives me more time for misbehaving.
Is that a defense of the beards?
Yeah, I think it is.
Honey, after Orlando, I thought the gays would finally get rid of the fucking beards. They've been walking around like Muslims. That's what the fuck is this? Now after Orlando, can you and it's like always the twink ass ones. It's like, yeah, you're the lumberjack, Mary.
Listen, Lady Bunny, what's the most exciting thing about giving a terrorist a blowjob? You never know when his dick is going to explode in your mouth. Ooh.
You can use that one.
You can use that one.
And you've never been had till you've been jihad.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.